Good morning. Welcome to my channel, Melody Joy Quilts. I'm your host, Melody Joy. Today I want to share with you a free tutorial. This is from Robert Kaufman Fabrics. The pattern is called Buttons and Bows. It is adorable. It has these bow blocks and then it has these chaining blocks that are little pinwheels. It also has a scalloped border. Now, I have never made a scalloped border. I'm not sure if I'm gonna end up doing a scallop border when this whole thing is finished, but I have made several of the bow blocks. This pattern is rated intermediate. That's the difficulty rating is intermediate. It's not the very easiest pattern, but it's certainly not extremely difficult. Very doable. Even if you haven't been quilting very long, very doable. These are the little bow blocks. Now, I've made a few so far. Here's a pink one. Here's a blue one. This one is light green with little pink rosebuds. I really loved this fabric with the little stripes. This was a Draper James fabric that I got from Joann's, but it doesn't really have good contrast. Really, to make this bow block stand out, you need to have a good contrast between your bow fabric and your background. I'm using Kona Snow as my background, and then the other block that alternates in this quilt is these little pinwheel blocks. And I just think this quilt is just darling. Okay, so sweet. I did pick up this little fat quarter bundle. It was $5.99 at Hobby Lobby. And it has a blue, pink, green, orange, and yellow. And actually, it's similar to the colors that are on the front of this pattern as far as like there's some blue, green, yellow. There's actually some red on the cover pattern. I'm not using any red. I think this pattern is so fun. So let's get into it. I'm gonna go ahead and open up this little fat quarter bundle and start ironing my fabrics. I think I'll do pink today. Let's do a pink one. That would be sweet. Okay. So this fabric palette for the artist in you, 100% cotton, do not pre-wash. So it doesn't really say. Doesn't really have a name for these, but these look kind of like a grunge, and this one's like a pink. So I'm gonna go ahead. I think this will have good contrast with my background so the bow will actually stand out. So I'm gonna start by ironing this. We're cutting all of this into 2-inch strips. So let me just line this up here. We're gonna cut some 2-inch strips. So I think you could use a jelly roll for this pattern, but then you would have to then go ahead and trim your jelly roll down. So I don't know if that's the best use of a jelly roll, because we are working with 2-inch strips, not, a jelly roll is 2.5. This is 2-inch strips. Cut into 2x5. So next I'm gonna cut some that are 2 inches by 5 inches. So let me start on a multiple of 5 to make this easy for myself. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go to 25. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I always double count. Like, even if I'm pretty sure, I'm always like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 20 to 25 is 5 inches. I don't want to waste fabric. I want to make sure I'm doing it the right way the first time. Okay, yes, so it says to do 6 pieces that are 2 inches by 5 inch rectangles. So these are our 2 inch by 5 inch rectangles. And then we need 2 that are 2 by 3.5. Is this gonna end up being 3.5? Oh, I'm so close, not quite, okay. Well, I do need some 2-inch squares, so I could use this for the 2-inch squares, okay? So let me get a 2-inch square out of here. Wasn't quite enough to do 3.5, but I can get a 2-inch square out of that, okay? And then I need some more 3.5. Maybe I'll just fold this in half and do it this way to get to my 3.5. Okay, let's see here. Okay. 3.5, and it says I only need 2 that are 3.5, but I need 7 that are 2-inch squares. So let me keep cutting some more. Whoops, not there. Let me move this back over. I need some 2-inch squares. I need 7 2-inch squares. That's 4. This will be 6. Okay, and then I need 1 more 2-inch square. Okay. Let me cut this one out right here. 1 more 2-inch square. Okay, so total I have 6 that are 2 inches by 5 inches, 2 that are 2 inches by 3.5, and I have 7 2-inch squares. Okay, I'm gonna set the rest of this aside. This is gonna be what I need to make 1 bow. Okay, now I need to work with my background yardage. This isn't super wrinkly, but I'm still gonna just iron it a little bit, just to make sure it's nice and smooth. This is Kona Snow. I've used Kona Snow quite a bit for background fabric because I just feel like it works pretty well. It's not a stark white, and it's not, I don't feel like it's too yellowy, like too much of a yellow cream. I feel like Kona Snow, oh, this came off dirty off the bolt. Anyway, I feel like Kona Snow works well for background. So I'm gonna cut some 3.5-inch strips and some 2-inch strips. Okay, this is gonna be for making 3.5 by 8-inch rectangles and 3.5-inch squares. I also need some that are at 2 inches for the other part of this bow block. So let me get a couple that are 2 inches going here. And these strips are longer because my pink fabric came off a fat quarter bundle. This came off the bolt, so it is longer. Okay, let's see here. 20, okay. Okay, so I have 3.5 and 2 inches. All right, so now we're gonna subcut these. So we cut them with the fabric, 2 inches and 3.5 inches. And now I need to continue to cut them down to the sizes that we need. Okay, I'm gonna start with these 3.5-inch ones. Now I need 3.5 by 8-inch rectangle. So let me get an 8-inch cut here. I think if I start on 28, okay. Cutting off all of these selvage bits because that's not very usable. And then I'm gonna come down to the 20. So I have from 20 to 28. Okay. So this is a 3.5-inch by 8-inch. And let me do that again here. 3.5-inch by 8-inch. 3.5-inch by 8-inch. Oh no, I did something wrong. But I think I can save this. That was 3.5-inch by 7-inch. Okay. I think 3.5 plus 3.5. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3.5. Yes, okay. I saved it. I accidentally cut that to 7 inches. 3.5 plus 3.5 is 7, and I actually needed some 3.5-inch squares, so this worked out. So there I have 3.5-inch by 8-inch, 3.5-inch squares, and now from my 2-inch strips, I need some 2-inch by 5-inch rectangles. So let's do that next. 2-inch by 5-inch rectangles. I'll just set that aside for a minute. Okay, let's see here. I'm double checking. Yes, 2 inches by 5 inches. Okay, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh my goodness. Cutting. And I never want to waste fabric. I never want to waste fabric or not have the fabric that I need. I always want to make sure I have correct. Let's make sure I'm lining this up good on the board here. Let's double check this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And then I need some 3.5-inch rectangles. So you'll notice it's similar to how we cut the pink because I now have kind of the same. 2-inch by 5-inch. I've got this, and now we're also gonna do 3.5 inches here. So it's similar cuts to what we did on the pink. A 2.5 or 2 inch by 3.5. 1, 2, 3.5. Okay. And then a bunch of 2-inch squares. Okay. Block right now. I've already made several blocks, like I said, using fabric that was from, you know, leftovers from other projects. You don't need a lot. You need quite a bit of background, but your actual like focus fabric, you don't need much of. So this is a good way, and it's 2-inch strips. So this is a good way to use up fabric from your stash, because I didn't even use a whole fat quarter for one bow, and it's small pieces. So I think this could very easily be something that you could, you know, help use up other materials that you have on hand. Okay, let me just trim this one down. Okay. Okay, I got a bunch of these little 2-inch squares. Okay, I'm gonna set the rest of this aside for right now. I'm gonna leave these out. The rest of this I'm gonna go ahead and set to the side. Okay, so now we have all of our cuts here. So I've got my 8-inch by 3.5, my 3.5-inch squares, 2-inch by 5-inch in both colors, 2-inch by 3.5-inch in both background and color, and then 2-inch squares. Okay, let's see. I know you're supposed to close it, but I forget sometimes. White squares. Okay, so we have to take our little white squares and we're gonna draw a diagonal line from corner to corner. I'm just gonna use a pencil, okay? So I'm gonna line this up, draw a light diagonal line from corner to corner. So we are gonna start with some of these 2-inch by 5-inch rectangles. And what we're gonna do is actually, we have to make 4 units. So we're gonna take 4 of these. We're gonna take 4 of these right now. Move all this out of the way a little bit. Okay. So with our little pieces that we put the diagonal lines on, we're gonna place them on here so that we can sew. We're gonna snowball the corners. But the way we're gonna do it is that it's going to make a, almost like a little hill, because we're gonna sew from the bottom to the top and then from the top to the bottom. So I'm gonna bring the camera around so you can see better what I'm doing. So we need to make 4 units that are gonna be the exact same. And all of them, we're gonna put the squares on, and the diagonal line is going from the top middle to the bottom corner. Top middle to bottom corner. We're gonna stitch right on that line. So from the center top to the bottom corner, and from the center top to the opposite bottom corner. So I'm gonna lift this. I'm gonna put the needle right there starting in the corner. Just make sure my fabric is lined up. I'm gonna stitch right on the line. Okay, I'm gonna lift my presser foot so I can get the needle right in the corner. Missing a little white square. There it is, it fell off the back. Okay, I'm gonna put this one here. Okay, so I'm just trying to line my needle up right on that corner edge, and then I'm just gonna sew down toward that other corner. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So the next step is gonna be ironing and trimming. Okay, so let's iron and trim these up. Okay, so we're gonna take our little units and we're gonna lay them down. I'm gonna use a little bit of heat to set the seam. I'm gonna lift this part and fold it back towards the corner and then iron it down, okay? Give it a good press. So now it should line up, so those edges line up. I'm gonna just turn my block a little bit, set this seam, lift this corner up, pull it back towards that other corner and give it a good pressing. So this is what your little unit should look like right now. Now, when you lift this little snowballed corner, you have 3 layers of fabric back here. You're gonna lift up the top layer. You're gonna take your scissors and just trim off this extra, okay? So it looks like this. So you're just trimming off those 2 little corners from the back. Same thing on the other side. You should have 3 layers of fabric here. You're gonna remove the top layer and use your scissors, and about a 1/4 inch away from where your seam is, you're just gonna snip off these back 2 fabrics. So now you should have a little unit that looks like this. And you're gonna do this with all 4 of these pieces. So you should end up with 4 pieces the same way, okay? So again, we're gonna iron to set our seams. We're gonna lift this little corner, pull it back down, line it up with the edges of your fabric, and give it a good press. Same thing on the other side. Put your finger under, lift this up, pull it back down towards the corner, line it up as good as you can, and give it a good pressing. Once you have it pressed, you're gonna lift that top layer, trim off these back corners, lift just the top layer, and again, you're trimming. You need to leave a little bit of space between where your seam line is. This is your seam allowance, right? And then open. Your unit should look like this, okay? And we're making 4 of these that are the exact same. Okay, I'm just gonna give these all one more good press just to make sure they are really nice and flat. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is we have some 3.5 inch pieces of our background and our 2 inch square. And we are gonna make some units where we put this little square on the side. We're gonna put right sides together. Now your background, it may be hard to tell what is the right side and what is the wrong side, but we're gonna put a 2 inch square on a 2 inch by 3.5 inch rectangle. And then we're just gonna sew with a 1/4 inch seam, just right along the side here. Okay, so again, a 2-inch square and a 3.5 inch by 2 inch background rectangle, and we're gonna do 3 of these. Okay, we're gonna just finger press that. So we have 3 little units that look like this. They all have the background and 1 little of the 2-inch squares on the side. Now, 1 of these, that's all we're gonna do, and that one's done. But 2 of these, we're gonna take and turn them like this, okay? And then we're gonna take 2 of our, I'm going to draw a diagonal line on the back of 2 of my pink squares. And we are gonna lay them in, so I have a square on the outside, and I'm gonna sew on the diagonal from this top to the bottom corner. And then this side is gonna be the mirror image. So it's not gonna be the same, it's gonna be very similar, but it is going to go like so, okay? So both of these units, the line should be in the bottom corner to the top middle, and our squares are on the outside, and we're gonna sew down these lines. I'm gonna take 1 of these little units, this is very similar, but it's mirror image. Okay, so similar to what we did earlier with it being a snowballed corner, we're gonna iron to press our seams. Then we're gonna lift this corner, pull it down towards, so that your edges are lining up here and here. Give it a good press. Just like we did earlier, you're gonna have 3 layers here. You need to lift that top one up and use your scissors to trim away the excess. So you have a little unit that looks like this. We need to do the same thing with the other one. And again, it's very similar, except it's opposite. Lift and trim. Okay, so the 3 units we just made right now are looking like this. So we've got one that just has, I didn't press this one yet. Let me just give these another good little steaming. Okay, so these are the units we just made right now. Okay, I'm gonna move these up here. So we've got 2 like this and 1 like this. Okay, we're gonna lay this little block out. So we've got our different pieces that we made. And what we're gonna do is the 4 that are the same are gonna be facing towards each other with that long straight edge towards each other. So we're gonna set it up like this. So those are the first 4 pieces that we made, and they go in this manner. This piece that had nothing else on it, just the 1 little pink square, is gonna go in the center. And then these 2 pieces are gonna go towards the middle, and they point down. So the squares are on the outside, and then the lines point down towards this other little square. So the line goes down, goes down. So we're gonna start assembling these. So right now it doesn't look like it fits, but there's gonna be, once these are sewn together, the seam allowances are sewn together, it will be this length. So I'm gonna sew this to this and this to this to make these together, and then I'm gonna sew these to this piece. I'm gonna move all of this a little bit closer to me. So we just laid this out. So I'm gonna take this top piece, fold it down here. I'm gonna line up these edges. And then I'm gonna sew a 1/4 inch seam right down the side. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. So I'm gonna take this one and do the same thing. I'm gonna just finger press this up this way. Let me grab my ironing board here. Iron to set my seam and press this open. Didn't really come out quite so. Iron a little bit better. Okay, so I have that one done. I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. Iron, open, and just give it a real good pressing. Okay. So now we have to add, so these little arrows, these little lines are pointing, these little points are pointing towards me. I'm gonna add this next piece on here. So I'm gonna just fold this up here and fold this one here. And again, 1/4 inch seam down both these sides. This block is rated intermediate, but I think it's so cute. If you're up for a little bit of a challenge, I think this is a really fun one. And I always start thinking about what other prints or colors could I use. A pink bow block, that's pretty on the head for, you know, a little girl. Like it's, you know, but you could do this in holiday prints. You could do it all in florals. Lots of possibilities. Okay. We're about to really get to start seeing this bow block come together. Up till now, it's just been pretty technical, but you're about to really start to see how this bow block takes shape. So again, I'm gonna press to set my seam. I'm gonna open this up and give it a good pressing. Okay, that's one loop of our little bow. Isn't that cute? Oh, I just think it's so cute. So I have 2 girls and 1 boy. And when my oldest is a girl, and when I found out my second child was also gonna be a girl, I was on Etsy ordering all these cute little matching outfits, and I was ordering them. I ordered these kits to make them bows, and I was so excited about being a girl mom, and my husband had to tell me to stop and get off of Etsy because I kept ordering all the adorable little girl. I dressed them in matching clothes for years, and little bows and just all the things. And so they're now, you know, in junior high and 4th grade, and they're not really into the bows anymore, but I am still loving just the really sweetness of this. Okay, so once you have 2 that look like this, you're gonna lay them down. Again, this is the key here because I have put these blocks together wrong before. These little diagonal lines here on this little snowball corner here need to point down towards this square. That's how I remember how to do this, is that these need to point down towards this square. We're gonna attach it. We're gonna do one side first, and then we'll come back and do the other side, okay? So right sides together. There's not really like a lot of seams to match up here. You just mainly wanna make sure that you're laying this on here as straight as you can. Okay. Although my 4th grader did, or my 7th grader did just let me order matching bows for her volleyball team. They just had a volleyball tournament, and her uniform is a little plain. I found these really cute navy blue and silver bows for her volleyball team, and I just ordered them for all the girls, and I'm really excited about that. And so it's hard to let go of some of those really cute things. Okay, so I'm gonna press that seam towards the sashing. I'm gonna take this next little block. I'm gonna flip it on here, and we're gonna sew a 1/4 inch seam down this way. and this will be the whole top of our little bow block. So there's a lot of prep work to get to the point where you start to actually see it become a bow, but from this point on, you can pretty much tell what's happening. Okay, I'm again gonna press this towards that middle center, which is kind of like the sashing of this block. Okay, so I'm gonna iron to press this seam. I'm gonna open this and we're gonna iron it towards that center. Okay. That's the top of our bow block. Isn't it cute? Oh, I just think this is so cute. Okay, let's keep going. So now that we have the top of our bow block done and the back of it, you can kind of see how the back should look, and our seams are going towards that center, okay, like so. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our 2 by 5 inch rectangles. We're gonna take 2 of these that are 2 by 5 inches, and we need to take 2 more of our little pink squares. So these little pink ones here. And we're gonna do, we have to do the diagonal lines again. Grab my pencil. Okay, and we need to do these kind of like how we did earlier. They're gonna be mirror image of each other. Okay? So like so. And then we're gonna do from this top corner down towards the middle, okay? So I'm gonna draw this diagonal line here. And same thing on this other side, but it's the reverse. So these, we're gonna start in the top upper corner and go down towards the middle bottom, okay? So I'm gonna do this diagonal line this way. So basically, these are mirror image of each other. Now, when I'm snowballing a corner, I find it easier to start from the straight side. Starting from the corner sometimes messes up my machine because I think when I try to start from the corner point, there's not enough fabric for the feed dogs to grab onto, and it sometimes is all over the place. So I find it easier to rotate it and start my stitch from this flat side rather than starting from the corner. This is my personal preference. I've seen other people do it different ways. For me personally, I feel like I have less issue if I start on this flat side of the block. So I'm gonna put my needle down right there on that top upper corner. Okay, we're sewing right on the line. Sometimes you sew beside the line. This time we're sewing right on the line. Again, I'm just gonna rotate this so that I can start from the flat side of the block instead of starting from the corner. I just feel like I have less issues with the feed dogs and the thread. Okay, I'm gonna lift this corner, pull it towards the outside edge so that we end up with something that looks like this. And the other one's gonna be very similar, but again, it's just gonna be mirror image. Okay, we're gonna trim off those back 2 layers. This part should be starting to look familiar because we've done this a couple times now, right? So lift the top layer, trim off the back. Okay, so the way that this is gonna go into the block is like so. Okay, see how that's gonna go in there? So anyway, but this is what we're working on right now. So the next thing that we need to do is take 2 of our 5 inch squares again. So these are our pinks that are 2 inch by 5 inch. And we're gonna take more of our little white ones and we're gonna put them on the corners here, one on either side, these little white blocks, okay? We're gonna draw the diagonal lines. And again, it's gonna be mirror image to each other. So it's not gonna be the exact same. We need to do it mirror image. So we're gonna, from the top middle to the bottom corner, and there's really good pictures in this pattern. So when you go onto the Kaufman website and get the pattern, you will have very clear pictures. I'm just showing you the steps, but if you're gonna do this pattern, you're gonna need to go get the pattern, and it's a free pattern. So go on the Kaufman website, and then you'll have pictures. Oh, I almost did that wrong. I need to turn, I need to rotate myself, and go this way. Coming down. I'm not lined up on the corner here. Okay, so I have the lines are going like this and like this. And so it's here to here, here to here. And again, we're gonna sew right on the lines. Okay, so I'm gonna lift this little unit up, take it over here. Again, I don't like to start from the corner. I prefer to start from the straight side. You could start from either side you wanted. I just find it easier to start from the flat side of the diagonal. Jump on the corner there. Now I gotta rotate this one around. And so see, this one's angled the other way because we're doing the angles the other direction. So I'm gonna start right here in this corner. I think it's intermediate just because there's a lot of little pieces, but as you see, we're doing a lot of the same things over and over again. We're snowballing a lot of corners, so there's more pieces to keep track of, but none of this is difficult. And it's very repetitive. The trickiest part is just making sure that your diagonal lines are going the right way. But if you follow the diagrams in the pattern, you should be fine. This is not a speed block. This is not one of those finish a quilt in a day things. This is not that. You might finish a couple of blocks in a day unless you're just incredibly fast. So it's not a speed pattern, but I think it's a really cute pattern, and it's a free pattern. But it's not particularly fast, and if you try to rush, you probably will make a mistake. I would make a mistake. If I was trying to rush, I would definitely make a mistake, so I'd definitely get some pieces on backwards or upside down or the wrong diagonal. Okay, we're almost done with this block at this point. Okay, let me get this under here. I'm gonna turn this one into 2. Okay. Okay, we're gonna iron these up and trim the corners. So, like I said, you see you're doing the same type of method over and over again. We're gonna set these seams. I'm gonna lift this corner, pull it back, iron it out, okay? So your unit now should look like this. It's cute, right? Okay, and I'm gonna trim these corners. This is a good project if you have a new grandbaby girl on the way. Maybe you have a new granddaughter, a new great-granddaughter, or a new niece coming. I'm one of 6 kids, so I am turning 40 this year, but I still have some siblings that are still having babies, so I still get to make things for new nieces and nephews, and it's fun. And I made a little baby quilt recently for my neighbor's baby, and it was a little baby boy quilt. I had so much fun. My youngest is 7. I don't really have any babies in the house anymore, but I love babies. I love sewing for babies, and I think this pattern in particular would be so sweet. If you got invited to a baby girl shower or you have a new baby girl on the way, this bow quilt, I mean, is there anything better for a baby girl? I don't know. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna take those 2 units we made earlier so that we have these little corners here. We're gonna take these white ones, and these are gonna go like so, okay? So the diagonal line that's here is kind of mirrored by these diagonal lines going this way. So the diagonal and the diagonal, all these are going the same direction. Over here, this diagonal line is going this way, and these diagonals are also going that way, if that makes sense, that everything is kind of pointing that direction, okay? We need to sew these together. So I'm just gonna fold this in half. Once I make sure I have it lined up correctly with my pattern, I'm gonna fold these in half, and we're gonna sew along that side, okay? I'm gonna leave this one open for a second until I'm ready to sew it so that I make sure I'm sewing on the right side. Because what you don't want to do is take it to the machine and then sew on the wrong side. So make sure you have it lined up right. I'm gonna hold it here so that I know I'm starting from right there. fold this in half. I'm gonna hold it on the side that I need to sew. Line my little corners up, 1/4 inch seam. Okay, let's iron these open. Press this at the seam, open and iron. Okay, same thing over here. So we're gonna point these back how we had them. Now we need to take one of these 2 inch by 3.5 inch rectangles, and it should fit right there. And we're gonna sew these to this, okay? So I'm gonna just carefully lay this on here. This is, again, just a little bit of a tricky part. I have sewn these together wrong. So like I said, I had my like one going up and one going down. So you have to be, you do have to be a little careful when you're putting these together, because there's a lot of angles, and the angles of the bow need to go the right way so you end up with a bow. I have to seam rip one of these blocks because I did it wrong. I'm gonna press it towards that middle sashing. Again, I'm gonna make sure that my diagonal lines are going the right way, that I'm coming from the top to the bottom on both of these. Once I'm sure I have my lines going the right way, I'm gonna fold this over and stitch this. Okay, just lining up my corners here and stitch on down. It's gonna go like this. So if you're looking at the block, I'm gonna turn around towards you. It would go like this. Isn't that cute? Oh, it's so cute. Okay, all right, we're almost done. We just have a little bit more to do. Okay, so I'm gonna set this aside here. I've got that going. The next thing to do is we need these. We still have some 2 inch by 3.5 inch rectangles. And again, we need some more of these little white squares. And we are gonna sew these. Everything in this pattern is pretty much mirror image. Other than those first 4 units that you made that were the exact same, everything else you make in sets of 2 and they're mirror image to each other. So these are gonna be like so. Okay, from the top, middle, down to the bottom corner, and then the other side is the opposite. Okay, again, I'm just following the diagrams in the pattern. I think that's why this has an intermediate rating. It's not that you're doing any really hard techniques. I think it's just because you have to keep track of the angles. But it's well worth it. It's such a cute block. I also made one of these bow blocks in a yellow print that had little pink flowers on it. And then I put some eyelet lace around it, and I made it into a pillow and for my mom for her guest bedroom. So I made one of these bow blocks into a pillow, and I thought that turned out super cute. So you can make the whole quilt, or you could just make one block and then do something with the one block. Or for like a burp cloth or a little lovey for a baby girl. Wouldn't that be cute to use one of these bow blocks to make like just a little set of burp cloths, and it could just be super cute? I don't know. I always start thinking about the what ifs. Okay. Let's do the same thing here. Same technique we've been doing. Pull it towards the corner and press it down. That one, I think I can straighten it up a little bit more. Okay. Okay. Lift and trim. Lift and trim. Lift and trim. Let me trim this a little bit like that. Okay. I'm going to trim here. Okay. All right. We are going to point these like this, and we're going to take one of these. Okay. So if you're looking at the block as a whole, it's going like this. This is one of our 3.5 inch by 8 inch, and we're going to put these little units we just made on either side. This is the ribbon coming down. So the ribbon's coming down from the bow. So we have our bow and then our ribbons coming down. So we're going to fold these over here and sew this on. At this point, we're almost done. Okay, let's see here. Take the other corner, lay it on there, and we're going to sew this on. Okay, so we have our bow and then we have our ribbons coming down. Now we just need to sew these 3 units together. So I'm gonna take this middle one, fold it down right here. And there's not really anything to match up because everything's doing its own kind of thing. So I'm just gonna make sure I've got both corners lined up and kind of hold from either end that the corners are lined up. Double check my corners there where I want it to go. All the way down. Okay. This one. Okay. Okay. We're gonna open this up. Okay. Let me give this a little pressing and open this. Now we're going to take these 2 parts here, the top of our bow and the bottom of our bow, fold these together. Now this is where you want to be a little careful. I'm actually going to grab some of these little clippies right here because where this matches this, there actually is some matching to do. So where this part of the bow is here, you do want to make sure that this is going to match up nicely here. So I am actually going to take a second and line this up and clip right there on that side, and I'm going to clip on the other side of the center because that actually does match rather than just being the edges of the block. Now I'm going to line up my edges and sew, but I know I've got my center seams matched where they need to be. And you could use pins, you don't have to use clips. I mean, you don't have to pin or clip. But if you wanted to, you could pin or clip or something. I just feel like because you do want that center to match, it's a good place to use a pin or a clip. Okay, let's look at our bow block. We should be all done now, and we can actually look at the final reveal. Okay, I know it kind of looks like a hot mess from the back, but it's cute from the front. I just love it so much. Okay. Isn't that cute? Okay. The last steps is some of those 2-inch pieces that you cut earlier. You add a border around this and then you trim the block down to size. So I'm not going to show all that, but this is the bow block, and this is again from the free pattern. Buttons and Bows by Kaufman. I'm going to put the link in the description. And then just because we've been talking about the bows and I'm excited, I'm going to show y'all what I ordered for my daughter's volleyball team. This is just bonus. It has nothing to do with this quilt pattern other than that this is a bow. This is a bow quilt, and I just got these in the mail, so I'm just going to share because I'm excited. My daughter made her 7th grade volleyball team. They had tryouts. I'm so excited. I'm over the moon proud of her. Their uniforms are this dark gray with navy blue print because their school colors are navy and gray. And they just went to a tournament, and she told me that she felt like their uniforms were plain compared to some of the other teams they were playing. And some of the other teams had really cute matching bows. So being who I am, I went online to Amazon. I had her team vote on which bows they liked best. There were several different ones. and I ordered these bows for her volleyball team. So they have a game Thursday night, and I'm super excited, and it'll just kind of jazz up their uniforms a little bit. I think when you feel good, you play good, and maybe it'll boost their confidence. I don't know. I was happy that she still wants to wear a bow. So whether you are making a quilt for a baby in your life, or you have older children or grandchildren, whatever stage of life you're in, I hope you have a blessed day and happy quilting. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more.